discuss about configuring the security and the governance part. We want to configure the security, we want to configure the governance part. That is what we are actually going to discuss. So within the data warehouse in Microsoft Fabric, it's a very comprehensive platform for the data and the analytics. It features some advanced query processing, full transactional T-SQL capabilities for easy data management. All these things it includes. So let's get started and let's understand about the security features. The very first security feature which we have is about the row level security. So we are going to discuss what is this row level security first of all and how we can implement this row level security. Row level security, we can say, will allow the administrators to control the access to individual rows in a database. So what you can do is it will basically control the access of individual user rows in a database table, which will be based on the identity of the user who is executing the query. This is kind of a fine-grained access control mechanism. It will ensure that the users see only the data which they are authorized to view. That is basically what the row level security ensures. Nothing the user will be able to see and nothing less than that the user will be able to see. So in row level security, this feature will provide more granular control over the access to rows in a table, which is based on the group membership or the execution context, we can say. Like for example, in an e-commerce platform, you can ensure that the sellers only have access to the order rows that are related to their own products. This way, each seller can manage their orders independently, while it also maintains the privacy of other sellers' order information. This is basically how we can use this row level security. Row level security works by associating a function which is known as a security predicate with a table. This function is defined to return true or false based on certain conditions, we can say. Then we have the next concept, which is about column level security. Now we need to understand what is this column level security all about, how we can implement the column level security. Column level security will allow you to restrict the column access in order to protect the sensitive data. It will provide more granular control over who can access the specific pieces of data. It enhances the overall security of your data warehouse, we can say. Let's just consider one practical example of a column level security. Suppose we are in a healthcare system or in an industry. Suppose we have a table named patients, and the patients table may be having some multiple columns like patient ID, name, address, date of birth, medical history. These different columns the patients table include. The medical history column contains sensitive health information about the patients. So as per the healthcare regulations and privacy laws, this information should only be accessible to the authorized medical persons such as doctors or the nurses. In this case, what you can do is you might have to implement a column level security in this type of a scenario. First of all, you have to identify the sensitive column. So in this case, as I said, medical history is a sensitive column. So you have to identify it. This will be identified as containing the sensitive data. Second thing, what you do is you have to define the access rules. So you will define roles such as doctors and nurses who are allowed to access the medical history column. Other roles such as the receptionist or the patients, they might be restricted from accessing this column. Third thing which you have to do is you have to assign the role to users. So you have to assign the appropriate roles to each users in the warehouse. Like for example, if there is a doctor, they might be assigned the doctor role. If there is a patient, then patient should be assigned the patient role, like that. Then you have to implement the access control. So you can restrict the access to the medical history column based on the user's role. So column level security can help us to ensure that sensitive information is only accessible to those who are authorized to see it, though protecting the patient's privacy and complying with the healthcare regulations. This is basically what the column level security talks about. So if we look at this column level security, what we can see also, this is another example which is provided. It's kind of more control which you are getting with the sensitive informations like credit card numbers, these things which should not be visible to all. So it will restrict the column access in a table. It is implemented using the grant select and deny select permission. So you can grant select permission on orders table to this person. You can deny the select permission on orders credit card column to this person. Like this we can do. So certain columns will contain sensitive information which you want to hide. So users can actually require access to general data, but not any confidential attributes. That is basically what the column level security talks about. Then we have got some more granular permissions, we can say, in the context of Fabric warehouse. So this actually refers to the ability to control the access to the data and the operations which is there within a data warehouse at a very detailed level. It includes managing who can access specific data or specific tables or the columns or the views, and also even performing certain operations like the grant, select, insert, update, delete, all these operations. So if I talk about more granular permissions, it will allow the organizations to adhere to the principle of least privilege, which means it will ensure that only the users who need specific access to certain data or features, they are granted the permissions. In T-SQL, we can control these permissions through a series of commands and security configurations. Like we can have schema level permissions. So schema level permissions can assign permissions on a schema level, which covers multiple objects like the tables, views, procedures. Then we can have table or column level permissions. So these are the permissions which can be granted not just at the table level, but also at the column levels. We can have stored procedure and functions permissions. Like we can say there are some stored procedures for functions permissions which we are providing, and row level security is there. So all these are the more granular permissions which we can provide. These are some more SQL granular permissions which we can configure using the T-SQL. These are all DML operations. These permissions includes basically select, insert, update, delete. They are universally applicable across all the database platforms, we can say. So always remember that if a permission is granted using the grant statement, then the permission is given to the user or role referenced in the grant statement. Users can also be denied the permission using the deny statement. So if a user is granted a permission and then denied the same permission, then the deny will always supersede the grant and the user will be denied access to the specific object. So this always we have to remember. So this is basically all about the granular permissions which we discussed. Then we have a concept of dynamic data masking. What is this concept of dynamic data masking all about? So when we talk about dynamic data masking, this is basically, we can say like if we don't want to show the exact data to the user. We want to just kind of put a mask on the data which is there. That is kind of a dynamic data masking which we can do. It's a security feature which will limit the data's exposure to non-privileged users by obscuring the sensitive information. It has got several key benefits which will enhance the security and the manageability of the data. There are also different masking rules which we can apply. Like we have a default masking type, we have email masking type, we have custom text masking type, we have random masking types. So there are many such masking types which we can apply also, which we can use also. So any user with the high privilege will see the original data, but rest all who are not an unauthorized user, they will never see the actual data which it consists. So this is basically what the concept of dynamic data masking is all about. And whenever we use this dynamic data masking, it is applied when the query results are returned. So no data changes are going to happen. Nothing will happen to the original data. It is just a kind of a masked data which we see. Then we can also apply some sensitivity labels to the items. We have an option where we can apply these sensitivity labels. So what are these sensitivity labels? The labels which can classify and protect the data based on the sensitivity. Like we can say if this particular lake house is a confidential one, or it can be used for public relations, or whatever it is. You can use it for public. You can use this lake house. So that is what the sensitivity label discusses. It is enforced via Microsoft Purview's information protection. And why do we use them in Fabric? So if you want to prevent any unauthorized access and data leakage, then we can use it. If you want to ensure the compliance with governance policies, for that purposes, we can use it. It's a kind of a label which will persist across exported Microsoft 365 files. So if I'm declaring any sensitivity label for any of my item, I say is confidential, which means it's a confidential data which should not be included in any of the reports or any of the things which is shared with all the people. That is basically how we can apply the sensitivity labels to the item. Same way, we can also endorse the items which we have within the fabric. Endorsement is kind of a way in which we can highlight the high quality trusted content within the fabric, which means I can endorse my fabric item. I can say if it's basically a promoted one, certified one, I can endorse my items in this way. It will help the users to discover the reliable data and assets quickly. Endorsed items appear higher in search results and are clearly labeled. So there is a different way in which we do this endorsement. So let me just quickly show you where you can find this endorsement part as well. And then we will proceed to the next part, which is a quick recap of what we discussed. So if I go to my workspaces, suppose any of the workspace which I created, let me just go over here. In this workspace, I have basically the endorsement is nothing right now. We can see nothing is done for the endorsement. Let me click on the settings. And if I click on the endorsement, you can see all these options. None is there, promoted is there. If you want, you are the workspace admin, so you can mark it as a promoted one. I can make this a promoted one. For the certified one, it is basically done by there are some steps which we need to configure for a certified one. If you want this to be certified one, there is some particular steps which we need to go through. So promoted, if I do, so you people can trust, okay, this is a promoted data which can be used within the organization. So this is basically what it means. So coming back to the slides where we left off. So with that, we are going to do a quick recap of what we discussed in our session today.